So let's get started. So just want to thank everyone for joining us today. So this is the third in our webinar series. I'm Sebastian Simpson, the Business Development Manager. Today you'll be pleased to know we've got a guest speaker, Kevin McHugh from Mace over in Ireland. So you won't have to hear me speak as much this week. So this webinar series, so what we've been doing is trying to kind of go through the stages of digitalizing construction, and kind of more importantly, how you transition from kind of traditional methods into digitalization. Because if everything's not aligned, then you can't really have one without the other to work properly. So as I said, this is the third in our series. So as of after today, we'll be moving into every other week, because we know kind of people are kind of going back to work after kind of working from home, and kind of things are changing all the time. So we've changed it to every other week. So in 2 weeks' time, we'll be doing session 4, which is on production management. And 2 weeks after that, we'll be working on Lean and BIM integration. And then finally, progress visualization. So all the webinars, the future webinars are open. So you can go to VisiLean.com/webinar and register for those. Suspect there are limited spaces, so please can you register in advance just so we can know numbers. Today's session and all the other sessions are recorded and will be up there. The others are already on there and on our YouTube channel. And this one will be up today as well. At the end, we will do a Q&A session. So if you just hold all your questions till then, and then we can ask you to type them, and I'll get Kevin and maybe some of the team, if you need, to answer them. So normally this is where we kind of talk about the kind of impact of COVID-19, but I thought as we've got Kevin here today, it'd be good to kind of understand how it affected Mace, and in particular his sites, and what they're kind of doing to kind of work around it. So Kevin.
Hi Seb, good afternoon everyone. Yeah, we're shut down currently as a government shutdown in Ireland, so we're working now just to develop our plans and just learn how to manage the site, because COVID-19 is going to be a big part of the process now for the next 12 months until the vaccine's in place. So they are uncertain times, but I think more than ever production planning is going to have a big role in how we manage our sites. Managing resources on site is going to be a big issue, making sure we have social distancing in place, and it's going to be more detailed work planning and sequencing that's going to help us get through this new and challenging time.
Okay. Well, the floor is yours, so I'll turn my mic off and I'll turn it back on at the end.
Okay, Seb.
Cheers.
Okay, so yeah, that's Mace. Okay, so just to introduce myself, my name is Kevin McHugh. I work for Mace Technology in Ireland. My role on the project, we're building a hyperscale data center, and I am the Lean and Production Manager for the project. And we have been using the Last Planner system on the project since 2015, but over the years we have developed and improved the system. So I suppose to try and give Lean its background, Lean is about getting value to flow the pull of the customer, so that's about working together, continuously improving and seeking perfection. And on efficiency, we're trying to be cost effective, use our resources wisely. So at the end of the day, the only way to drive the cost down and to drive down the time it takes to accomplish things is to be more efficient. So regardless of the uncertain times, we're trying to work smarter, not harder. So that is the tagline that I try and spread about our Lean production system. So we talked last week about traditional delivery. Just people will be familiar, with these kind of terms with a traditional delivery model, like, the difficulty in managing schedules and budget based on a base schedule. The sequencing and lack of collaboration potentially has safety issues. Rework and waste can be a big issue. And generally the execution problems, the siloed mentality, not working together. So the work can get done in an unreliable manner and potentially have customers that are not satisfied. I will talk more about customers going through the presentation, customer is not only the end user, but there's customers throughout the project. You know, for example, like the fit out contractor will need to have an envelope. So he's a weather type building. So, you know, he is the customer for the envelope contractor to make sure he has a weather type building. So these are all things about how we interact with each other. And it's a kind of snapshot of traditional delivery issues. So these are all things that we're all familiar with, you know, in the construction industry. And it's all something we have to manage in our day-to-day management activities. And if those who are working in a lean environment could probably relate to this kind of methodology. So it's a more collaborative working environment. So the risks are managed collaboratively. There's greater certainty with delivery. You know, there's delivery and budget schedule is more manageable. There's safer projects because there's a greater involvement with all the stakeholders that are planning to sequence their works and make sure their works are ready. And again, that will improve the quality. So, you know, the quality of the works, when works get released and committed to in weekly work plans, for example, the prerequisites, the technical submittals, the samples are all in place and the area is ready for work. And that greater coordination helps the execution of tasks. So the tasks are done at the right time in the right sequence to the right quality. And because the team are getting involved in delivering the plan, there's a greater team responsibility, and that improves the delivery. And that all ends for increased value to the customer. So we'll just talk about that for a second. What does that mean? You know, so value can only ever be determined by the customer. Anything that adds cost but not value is a waste. So, you know, we talk about waste then, for example. So there's 8 fundamental wastes in lean construction. They have one as rework. So works are not done to the right satisfaction. Unnecessary production is works done out of the sequence, not in the correct time. Unnecessary processing is overworking, doing works to the higher specification than is required. You know, these are all wastes that are added to the process. Inventory is more stock that's required. We haven't deployed a just-in-time delivery process. And then waiting is a big one. You know, you're waiting on information. You could be waiting on materials. You're waiting on the prerequisite work to be done. These are all issues that we find. Unnecessary emotion is an unnecessary movement of people and plant around to execute the work. So these are all hidden wastes that are in our daily activities that we need to identify. And again, this is about identifying and eliminating waste to improve the productivity, to improve the efficiency. So essentially, that's one part of lean construction, is creating a lean environment where we can identify and remove these wastes. This is just a snapshot of current industry productivity. So I think this study was done about 5 years ago, but this is the challenge in traditional construction. As you can see, the non-productive time is 58%. 25% of the non-productive time is waiting, as we said. So we were familiar with waiting on information, waiting on works to be ready for us, waiting on materials to be there, or waiting on the right equipment and tools. We can see another 25% is made up of unnecessary movement, unnecessary material handling. Again, this is inefficient works. You know, you could be double handling materials, working around materials, wrong equipment or tools, just general inefficiency. And then 8% is rework. So that adds up to 58% non-productive work in any day. It's an enormous number. And those statistics haven't really improved over the last 80, 90 years. It's shown, many studies have shown that with productivity in construction hasn't improved. And if you can compare that to, in the bottom corner there, you have manufacturing waste is 26%. Now, in a manufacturing environment, it's a more structured environment, more repeatable work. You know, it's a different scalability, but essentially there's 26% waste there relative to construction, which is at 58. So the challenge in construction is basically to move this non-productive time, so traditional construction methods haven't removed that, and that's where people are leaning towards a lean construction method to try and improve this non-productive waste. So essentially with lean as well, it's about people. So the people are the guys on ground that get work done. They're the designers that design, so the people are responsible for removing waste. So if trying to get onus on people to improve and identify waste, improve their work practices, take personal responsibility, then we can focus on our processes and workflow. Again, this is another element to remove waste. If we can improve our processes and flows, we can add value into the workplace. And this is what we're talking about here. The next orange circle is generating value, getting works done right the first time, getting our sequencing right, getting our prerequisites right, identifying our works, our make-ready needs. This is all about improving our workflow. And then it's people again, respect for people and getting a continuous improvement in order to generate a learning environment. So we're talking about continuous improvement. We have to identify our flaws. So in order to be able to identify flaws, we should be able to respect people to come up and say, hey, look, this didn't work. It's a no blame culture. Let's give us the information. Let's use the information. And then we can optimize the project as a whole. We don't work in silos. We don't work as electrical, mechanical, civils or structurals. The project has to be delivered by everybody, all stakeholders. So people is at the core of this process. So a little overview again, just to touch on to the last planner system. We talk about planning and scheduling. So your master schedule is your input from your client, your designers. This is what the overall master schedule, this is the prerequisites of a good project. This is the time it's going to take. This is when the equipment is going to be ready. And this is when the client expects it should be finished. And then this goes down into a phase pull plan, where constraints. It's essentially a construction plan. This is how we're going to deliver. The project team, the designers, the main contractors, the supply chain. This is how we are going to deliver a construction project. We've identified and we're going to specify the handoff. So it's a high-level sequencing program of works. These next three boxes of the can will do is essentially where production control starts. The make-ready process is the look-ahead process. It's been seen that the optimal look-ahead process the horizon should be about 6 weeks. So a 6-week look-ahead is the optimum size for your look-ahead planning. You can identify the constraint, the blockers, and make-ready needs in that 6-week horizon. This then informs your weekly work plan. This is the commitments that we talked about, people making commitments to work on a weekly basis. So this is where we're talking about our weekly work plan. It's a list of constraint-free commitments that we will actually try and achieve during the week. And this is the real thing. This is not like a resequence plan or people pushing work. This is guys saying, this is free, this job is constraint-free, I have the right equipment, the right materials, I'm able to do this work, and this is actually what's going to be done. And again, as managers, we're going to have to, we have to respect weekly work plans. We can't be trying to push more work on. We need to get quality weekly work plans, and then we do our learning. This is where we talk about looking at the PPC and variances, which the guys talked about the last couple of weeks. So our plan percent complete, regardless if it's 40, 50, 60%, this is invaluable information for us to improve the system. So in order to improve the system, again, it's about a continuous improvement and no blame culture. So again, we talk about the fundamentals of lean. It's about people and respect for people. So we expect people to make reliable promises. Therefore, we should be able to improve these promises, look at the variances, and look what we could do better collectively. So, as I say, this all sounds great, the lean versus traditional, so why don't we all do it? As I said, there's a growing acceptance that change is required in the construction industry. Our productivity hasn't improved despite more integration with digital tools and BIM collaborations. The goal of lean production is actually a smooth, calm, reliable system. It doesn't suit firefighters, heroes, or reactionists. So that guy on the right is not the guy we want to see on the building site. He can solve all the problems. He's reacting to every instance and doing the job as it appears the best he can. What we're trying to do is to get the job ready in the first place, do it in a calm and ordered fashion, again, doing the right work at the right time to the right quality. So there's barriers to pull production management. There's design teams that are distributed across the world. There's a reluctance to engage in an analog sticky note system. It doesn't look very fancy. And also the size of projects may not allow for a production manager or a lean facilitator to be full-time on the project. So again, it may require managers or pick smaller parts of the projects. You may not have a lean manager or a production manager, but it doesn't mean you can't start the process as a smaller part and build it up through the systems in your work plans. So let's do a little overview again of the production system. What we talked about in collaborative planning is phase planning. That's getting everybody in the room, all the stakeholders, identifying the roadmap. So this is your roadmap to construction complete. This is all when the design deliverables will be done, when the equipment will be ready, the sequencing of works, and the potential blockers and constraints are all mapped out. Then you break it down into your production 6-week horizons to make ready look ahead planning. So you're identifying your constraints 6 weeks in advance, and you're going to have 6 weeks to remove these constraints until the execution week. So it's really important that not only do you have a 6-week look ahead, but you've identified the blockers and constraints that are required to be removed to get these jobs ready. And then this is your weekly production control. When you produce your weekly work plan, you have to manage it every week. So you do this by daily check-ins. You don't add to the plan or take to the plan. You manage the plan during the week. So you check in as a team every morning, try and improve the block or remove the blockers, improve the coordination, improve the conversation, and getting teams to work together. And again, at the end of the week or during the week, it's continuous improvement. And again, that really is a culture thing, that you want people to be open and honest with their information. They're not being penalized for missing commitments. You're trying to find out why the commitments were missed. Was it under control? Whose fault was it? And where can the improvements be made? And just 4 points on planning from Glenn Ballard, the inventor of the last planner system. From, again, trying to manage traditional critical path method versus a lean production method. Like, all plans are forecast, therefore all forecasts are wrong. So you could be 2 weeks ahead or 2 weeks behind on your forecast, but essentially it's not bang on. And indeed, the longer the forecast, the more wrong it is. There's more deviance. 2 weeks behind, you can accelerate, get 2 weeks ahead on the same project in another 6 weeks' time. It's always moving. And then the more detailed the forecast, the more wrong it is. So plan in greater detail the closer you get to doing the work. And that's in this phase here, the make ready phase, your 6-week look ahead horizon. That's when you get into the more detail, and again, more detail still when you get into 3 weeks, 2 weeks, and then your weekly work plan. So this is probably where we use VisiLean as well to help us. So working on these plans, if you look at them, they each package can make a look ahead plan. They can make a weekly work plan and have daily check-ins. But we want to integrate all these plans because we work so much together that the handoff and trade-offs between the multidisciplinary parties, particularly in modern construction projects, which are so complex, we need to have visibility of these look-ahead plans. And this transparency generates trust as well. We're trusting that we're delivering on these plans. We're trusting that we can make our plans based on the prerequisite task being finished. So, generating a digital platform which allows teams to collaborate remotely increases the number of committed tasks, increases the granular detail, and allows teams to collaborate better. So this is probably a visual representation of that. Again, you'll have this big room environment where you have all key stakeholders and people involved in making reliable commitments. These post-its represent commitments from all the people in the room. And getting these people here every week is not feasible. Getting the right people in the room, no one moves a sticker belonging to any other or a commitment from any other contractor. It's up to that contractor or that discipline to manage their commitments. So transferring all that knowledge onto a digital platform increases the transparency and makes a lot of people available to input into the plan. So again, this is the essence of collaborative planning. We're trying to improve collaborative planning. Again, the more information you put on it, the more management that has to happen. You own these commitments, and you're the only one that can actuate these commitments. So this is again in a site scenario. The ultimate process here is now, as a group, we meet weekly. We're trying to look at our make ready process. We're removing constraints. We're using digital tools. We're using visual aids like a computer control rooms, digital control rooms, but we're essentially managing our control. Our weekly is the planning, is the plan, do, check, act. So, we believe higher labor productivity goes hand in hand with a shorter, more reliable program. And the output of all these look ahead plans is this here. This is our weekly work plan. This is the plan that we're going to bring out to the field. So VisiLean helps to maintain the link from the construction program into 6 weeks look ahead plans. And these work plans then can be delivered in daily activity briefings. And the fact that we have such a digital platform, it means that we can generate these a lot of information remotely. So when we do go to our weekly coordination meetings, we're prepared. We're not workshopping a lot of these. We're workshopping few items that need, higher collaboration. But essentially, 80% of the plans are in place prior to us getting into a weekly work plan, and we're doing the final touches to 20%. And all trades can review and compile their works and compare each works and make sure that the relative handoffs and trade-to-trade handovers are identified. And most importantly, again, this is bringing this to the field. So, again, we're talking about a high-performance team. We're trying to improve the communication between multidiscipline teams. We've delivered a multidisciplined weekly work plan. So we check in. We have a daily activity briefings. Each trade updates and progresses their activities in the daily activity briefing. The idea of the daily activity briefing is to look at any health and safety issues, to look if we're on track with our weekly work plan, walk the rooms to see if there's any roadblocks, any quality issues. So again, we're trying to remove waste. So quality, not doing the right work at the right time, making sure that the handovers are working on time so we have the resources available to do the next stage of work. So again, these are the guys doing the work that are standing up, listening to the briefings. We're all working to the same plan. This is the same plan that has been checked through the phase planning. It's been the same plan that's been looked at in our look ahead planning. It's the same plan that we're doing in our weekly plans. So this plan is the same one all the way through. So it's consistent message brought down to the teams. So this is a sort of an example of learning here, so we use our PPC to manage our plan percent complete. You can see here is an example of structural steel. This is from a building 1 to building 3. We've identified a 12-week improvement, but not only a 12-week improvement in delivery of the building, but also we can see a higher piece count of steel delivered in that time. And just to show the backup to that again will be our PPC data from the structural steel element. So you can see it started off quite well, going pretty well for the first couple of weeks, and then we go down to 13%. So those of you working in the UK or the British Isles will know that that first week in March we had an unseasonal storm, Emma, which shut down the whole British Isles for a week. There were snowstorms, unprecedented snowstorms and windstorms, completely shut down. So in fairness, this is not too dissimilar to what we've got now. We've got a complete shutdown from COVID-19. But the lessons learned here from that shutdown is that we didn't get back up to peak as quickly as we thought. We did plan our works. However, there was probably snow to be removed. There was prerequisites that were in the way. There was other contractors that couldn't get up to speed as quickly as maybe the steel contractors. So their works or their planned works got impacted. But again, we did get back up to, and over the whole project, we managed a 77% PPC. But again, this shows the value here of agile management planning. So this is the thing about the last planner process. You're planning closer to when your work is available. We had a similar experience at the start of this year when we had a number of storms coming in the first 3 months of the year. So we reduced our look ahead horizon from 6 weeks to 3 weeks because it wasn't practical to look at a 6-week look ahead. So we had adapted to the current site conditions, and we used more accurate 3 weeks look aheads, and that ensured that the people and the resources were used efficiently throughout the course of the project. So again, it's about using the information, preparing your plans, check your plans, use the information to improve your plans. Ultimately, you're trying to improve your predictability. And if you can improve your predictability, your plans, your sequencing and coordination will improve. So as everybody plans are improved and coordinated, our 6-week look aheads and our forecasts of planned works is more predictable and reliable. So these are benefits you will get, as you use the learning tool. Generating the weekly work plan is an output of a 6-week look ahead. But improving this process, you need to look at your PPC and have an open and honest learning environment to demonstrate your productivity. And this is another section that we go on. As I said, we've used the last planner system since 2015, but as a lean company, I suppose we're constantly trying to evolve consistently. So over the last 5 or 6 years, we've improved our productivity. We've used cloud-based tools. Now we're using 4D technology and visual management to link our planning to our model. So this is another visual representation of what work has been done. And it's been proven that visual management tools improve our ability to process information, reduces the feedback time for action. So this helps a lot when we're doing our first run of installing these modules. For example, we were able to visually see blockers, sequencing issues. We were able to improve our productivity. And again, act quickly or react quickly to current site conditions. So that's an important part about lean construction as well. It's an agile system. You're reacting to on-site conditions. You're adjusting and managing your plans to your current productivity. And if that productivity doesn't meet the master schedule, you have the information there that you need to add additional resources or put in mitigating actions. If the productivity isn't meeting the goal or forecast goals, you may need to add additional shifts. There's actions that you can take, but you're using live and real information to improve the quality of your plans. And the mood of the people, it's non-adversarial. It's really live commitments. It generates safety, it generates value, and it improves quality, because everybody's invested into the system. So I think that's pretty much it for me. So thanks very much for listening. So I'll just hand you back to Seb. I hope you're able to understand me. I know I have a bit of a head cold, but thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Kevin. That was really, really interesting, because usually we've kind of been speaking about the theory behind lean, and I think today we've got a really useful real life example and some of the challenges that kind of face it. So if you have any questions for Kevin, please, you can start typing them now. Just again, a reminder that the upcoming sessions are now kind of every other week. So we start the 28th, which is our 4th session, which is production management. We've got 2 weeks after that, lean BIM integration, and then progress visualization. So we will kick off the questions. So I've got one for Kevin. Is your mic still on, Kevin? You might need to turn your mic back on if it's off.
Yeah, the mic back on.
Okay, so just a quick one. So you mentioned about kind of efficiency in construction hasn't really improved, or didn't really improve, for about 95 years. But obviously for that time period, everyone's kind of working the traditional way and kind of got into that, they're kind of stuck working in that kind of way. So what was your biggest challenge in kind of transitioning people from that kind of traditional method into this new lean kind of modern way of thinking? And then secondly, Was it kind of bit by bit, or did you just say, we've got a new project, this is the way we're working, or kind of phased it in?
Well, first of all, like Mace had, I've been using the last planner system or mandated this kind of thing for long before the project, but each project probably has different understandings of lean technology. So people looking at 6-week look aheads or weekly work plans just as PDF files or Excel sheets, they look very familiar to your typical critical path method. It's usually sequence work, but unless people talk about the learning process. So when we started the project, Lean was, or the last planner system was part of the process, but we didn't use the learning part of the tool quite well. So we didn't really record the PPC. Our focus was on delivering work plans and resource work plans. So it's again a bit by bit improvement. So, there's no wrong way to start. I would say that you need, as soon as you start, you've already got a wealth of information to work on. So when you do start and then you get people invested in it, as contractors start seeing the results, so it's ultimately they get the greatest benefit because they're getting a lot more work done with a lot less resources. So then when it comes to collaborative meetings, there's a kind of peer pressure involved that contractors have a greater expectation of the quality of weekly work plans that they are dealing with. So the quality of 6-week look ahead horizons needs to be improved by all contractors because they're relying on each other to produce their 6-week look ahead horizons. So identifying the handoffs has become a big, well, not a big issue, but it's a key focus for contractors when they're trying to plan resources. They want to make sure that the work is available from when they get to site. So as soon as you get the ball rolling and you start seeing results, you get investment from the contractors. Again, the guys on site who are actually doing the work, never mind our managers, think it's great. They go into a room or an area and they expect to see people working in an area where they've identified. So they don't expect people to come in and start doing unplanned works, for example, so they can tell straight away. They've been at the briefing in the morning. We've all agreed what the works are going to happen during the week. And then if somebody comes in who hadn't planned works, it's obvious. So you've lots of people working on the same plan. So it's important that, as I say, you make a plan and you stick to a plan. And, it's creating that environment to learn and improve. So you have to start it, as I say, Mace had started, and we kept improving on the system, and the contractors buy into it, and they want to see more improvements.
Yeah, I think we touched on it last week that you show people the benefits and then you get the kind of buy-in, so it's a bit easier that way. We have got a few questions, so I don't know if you can see this. So from Kieran Hunt, any advice on scaling up the lean process on large projects?
Yeah, there's a lots of different lean process, but again, you're talking about efficiency here. Like, depending on each process or process or project you're using, you got to identify where your wastes are. If you have a large project using lots of plant and material, is there opportunity for off-site works? There's opportunities. It has to be looked as a whole. It's not essentially weekly work planning, or it's sequencing. What can you do better? If there's particular areas of the site that aren't working well or more efficiently, that's where you target them. So you can scale up on these, but you need to look at the project as a whole. I think there's lots of different tools rather than using lean interventions trying to fix I suppose non-productive or non-performing elements. Get into a room, get the stakeholders into a room, identify where the value is. Is quality an issue, or the understanding of quality? I mentioned before, the conditions of satisfactions are important, but is there any way that the key stakeholders can work together to improve the processes? But again, it's all about getting the decision makers in to a room to understand what good looks like, what conditions of satisfaction are, and what the areas of improvement are on the project as a whole.
And presumably you do that before construction and then kind of
Well, you can do that during construction as well. There's nothing stopping people going into a room and looking at specific areas. If you're looking for project improvements, if there's a specific area, whether it be civils, mechanical, electrical installation or commissioning, whatever it is, there's no reason why you can't have, if you have the information to identify what your current state is and where you want to go and for your future state, get people involved to workshop it out, find opportunities for improvement, drive out the waste that are currently in the process. It's certainly, it's all about communication, and essentially it's getting more people involved is really how you get the lean processes advanced in large projects. Get the communication chain from top management down to bottom management.
Yeah, I think, and again, we've mentioned it in pretty much every week. It's that kind of continuous improvement throughout the project, not just at the beginning. Next question. So, how much is the approximate additional cost for implementing lean construction, the last planner system in a project?
Well, how much is a box of Post-its? There's absolutely no additional cost. It's a much more efficient way of dealing with preparing plans. Your traditional plan, as I said, 60% of your traditional workplace is non-productive. And what I've shown in my example, we have 77% average production. So, it's a complete change. So moving from 42% productivity to 77% productivity, it's no additional cost. As you get more sophisticated, you may invest in cloud-based systems, or you generally have your systems in place. But the last planner system itself, it's investing in people. It's not an additional overhead, I would say.
Okay. Next question. In 4D planning, do you stick to major critical activities or all aspects of the 3D model?
Yeah, this is probably a new departure in 4D planning. I know there's, you have models that can show 4D planning as such, but it's not production planning in a lean perspective. Or lean planning is more agile, and it's usually in a 6-week look ahead horizon. So you do again pick your battle. So we used critical infrastructure and identified that first because it was easier to get the sequencing in. They were huge, particularly we're delivering off-site modules, so there was a lot of activity and logistic infrastructure to be coordinated. But I would say we can improve it more, but again, it takes preparation and preparing models and programs so that they can be related. But it needs to be an agile system. So yes, I'd keep it simple first. Where there is a lot of trade-to-trade interaction, you'll get the most benefit for 4D planning. Single civil works like steel frames or cladding are very uniform and easily dependent. But I suppose from where things get a little bit more complex, where there's a lot of different trades working, I think that's where you would get the most benefit from 4D. So yeah, certainly you would stick to major critical aspects. But again, it's not a separate plan. It's still included in your overall planning. It's just another visual tool to help you manage those critical activities.
So you need to make sure the model is kind of linked to your plan already, in terms of if you're doing if your process is a 6-week look ahead, you want kind of the model to reflect what's been worked 6 weeks, right?
Well, if the activities change or the durations change, if there was any delays, like the 6-week look ahead horizon is agile, so you're able to manage it more. It's more predictable. As you go through each iteration of a 6-week look ahead, it gets more and more predictable because you're using feedback from your PPC to improve your plans all the time. So yes, there has to be some relationship between the activities that you're identifying and the pieces in the model, because as you move your activities, the visual information in the model needs to react to the agile movement. So it can't be just a an animation that you look at every 6 weeks. It has to be something that's tangible and adjustable throughout the look ahead process.
Okay. Next question from Surab. So as per your experience, what is the saving in project cost on implementation of the last planner system?
Well, we can just say the resource utilization has increased by 25%. So even looking at your labor costs, so the labor on site have been more productive. So I'm not going to give you facts and figures, obviously, but if you're getting an increase in output from the same resources, you are going to get cost savings. So there's cost savings to your supply chain and cost savings to the project as a whole, but they're usually in the order of 20%.
Okay. I mean, like you said earlier, 58% of kind of non-value adding time has been wasted. Even if you could reduce that by a marginal amount on some of the bigger projects, that's millions of pounds almost.
Yeah.
Next question. So any responsibility matrix can be fixed along with weekly planning?
Yeah, well, like the responsibility is your commitments. So in terms of your last planners, your different packages, they're all integrated working. There's the thing about the last planner system itself is that it's not a siloed production system. Everybody is working together. And in terms of responsibility, I would imagine we as managers, so I can talk as a manager, for example, we have to put all the prerequisites in place for all the workers that are going to site to make sure all their works are constraint free. So it'll be a bottom-up management process, if you like. So the responsibility on us as managers is to make sure that the resources are available, the right materials and the right drawings are available, the prerequisite work is coordinated properly. So it's a fluid from each discipline. I would suppose it's a bottom-up responsibility. So our ultimate responsibility is to get a weekly work plan to the workers that is constraint free. They can pick up out of their back pocket and go to work. They don't have to resequence or redo anything. So it's not a one person responsibility, but it's again as a management core facility, we have to remove all the blockers. That's in our gift to give to workers to go out and do their weekly work plan.
Okay, so you as managers are kind of doing the make ready process for them, and then they're just starting. Is that how it works, or?
Well, they in order to do the works, you get feedback from your installers, your trade partners, and the guys from the ground. What they need to get their job done. Okay. What access they need, what materials they need, and then it's up for us to put that in place in order for them to do the work. So we do that by constantly checking in and constantly doing our weekly work plans and adjusting them.
So it's that kind of flow of information between both of you. Okay.
Yeah.
Message from Kieran again. So what's the best way to onboard subcontractors into the lean process, especially the smaller guys who may not be overly sophisticated with their planning?
I suppose one of the best onboarding tools was the peer pressure. So if they're working in a group and they're working together, so 3 or 4 different contractors working together, even a small section of works, some weekly work plans would be better prepared than others, but each contractor has a responsibility to carry out works within the process, so regardless of how big or small, he has an important part. For example, maybe fire stopping in a wall, he may not have a huge part of the contract, but he's a very important part. If his fire stopping doesn't get in, it may prevent the next sequence of work doing. So again, it's about working as a group to improve the quality of these work plans. And you will find that contractors expect a greater level of detail if as they progress. They see the benefit that they get from these look ahead planning. So it's actually a peer pressure that works to get these scheduled on board. They can get quite frustrated when people don't produce decent plans. And I suppose if you're still getting resistance, I suppose it's the only thing you can do is whether you can help them as much as you can off boredom as well, or else get different managers in or different people in. They do expect better plans from each other as they're working together, but you have different levels of, I suppose, sophistication, but they do generally improve as they're working with bigger organizations. So I think, generally speaking, even the worst plans improve over time, and they understand what they expect from each other. So it's about getting them all working together, and they use the peer pressure to improve their plans collectively.
Okay. Next one's any guidelines or precautions to be taken while preparing the initial project schedule for implementing the last planner system. And then he goes on to say, he means kind of how detailed or good does the initial schedule need to be?
Well, as I said, the more detailed the schedule, the more wrong it is. You need to have a construction schedule that's, it's breaking down into high level activities, civil, mechanical fit outs, and the detail then is brought in through the trade contractors. So I think you need to get a roadmap in terms of initial schedule. So understanding that information obviously might come from the client of what his timeline when he wants to open. Then you may have designers getting their inputs when they'll have design ready. Maybe essential kit, they'll have another input. So there'll be all these milestones, I suppose, predetermined within an initial schedule. But then again, you've got to engage your supply chain in developing your initial schedule. So the precaution is, you get more people involved in delivering your initial schedule. So this is your roadmap from your supply chain that's going to help you deliver the project collectively. So your construction schedule, your initial schedule, should be developed with your trade contractors, your client, your designers, and that will develop organically, if you like. You have your outline roadmap, and then the level of detail goes down from the input from all your trade contractors. And again, you probably have a lot of make-ready needs contractually, potentially as well, from that first initial discussion. But it doesn't need to be an over-detailed project. You get into more detail as you go into our phase planning and look-ahead planning.
Okay. So the detail comes from those kind of weekly, fortnightly meetings you have with the trades, and they break down your high-level activities into their kind of as-built program. Is that how it works?
Yeah, the high-level activities need to be, there needs to be durations put on them. What a reasonable amount of time it's going to take to do a whole portion of works. They need, you're talking about 4-6 week bars of different activities. They all add up. You don't need to go down into weeks processes into your initial schedule. You're talking about clumps of 6 week, 4 week tasks, all sequenced correctly, starting and finishing. And then, you have a roadmap essentially that you can baseline. And then your weekly work plans are more developed from there, and they're more agile. So you're trying to improve. And then, but you always reference back to your initial construction plan to see where you are, to make sure that your work plans are producing enough work. You could all very well be getting 80% PPC, but you may not be delivering enough work to manage the schedule. Therefore, there's a mitigation required. Do you need another crew, an additional crew? Do you need, double shifting? So, you use that information to work against your roadmap, your initial plan. Okay. But again, I suppose then the information, you're talking about blocks of 6 week blocks. You're not going down into huge detail.
Okay. Any more questions? I think that's it for now. If anyone's got any more, now's the time. Oh, sorry. I don't know if we had this one. At which stage of the project is the inclusion of the last planner system?
Well, you're talking about the lean principles at start. So you're talking about getting people involved from the outset. The more people you have at the outset in terms of your key stakeholders, you're able to produce a realistic plan and schedule, and you know you're able to identify your risks and opportunities for the project as a whole. So the talk about the core of the last planner system is like the plan, do, check, act. So you need to get a plan in place, a pre-construction plan. You do the same principle in place for the last planner system from the outset. You have some plans to do, you act on the plans, you measure and improve the plan. So you get it's different people are involved. At the outset, you're talking about client, designers, key supply chains. That's about pre-construction, getting a roadmap, identifying what the project's going to look like as a whole, and then it increases as more people are required to get involved in the project.
Okay. Last couple questions now. So, are you integrating the big room data into your master schedule?
Yes. Essentially, your big room data is going to formulate your construction schedule. So that's the kind of your roadmap. So I think this is where your collaborative phase planning, comes in. This is where you get an understanding of why or when the client needs things delivered, what information he does from his major kit suppliers, when are they going to be ready, what are the design constraints, all these issues come to avoid. And then as a main contractor, you're involved in the room as well. So this integration generates your first constraint log. This is where it starts. You get an understanding what the scope of works is for the design team. You can understand what the make ready needs are from the initial design as a contractor. Is it good enough to tender? This is the kind of stuff you need to do. So you do integrate your big room data into your master schedule. It informs your master schedule. So when you're getting that master schedule into a phase construction program, you've identified the risks, and you've also identified potential opportunities. So it's identifying risks and opportunities in every phase of the process.
Okay. So there was a part B, but I think you've pretty much answered that. If there's no more questions, we'll leave it there. I just want to say thank you again to Kevin, and thank you to everyone that listened today. Like I said, the recording will be up hopefully in the next day or so. And it'll be up on our website at VisiLean.com/webinars and on our YouTube channel. So thank you everyone for joining. And thank you.
Okay, Kevin. Thanks very much, guys. See you later. Bye-bye.
See you later. Thank you.